Welcome back to the Audible Angle. Scheduling note, little bit of action for me and Herbs the next week or so we're getting out as many episodes as we can here. We got just about a 2-week stretch of, maybe not 6 per week like you're used to. It is a daily show, but it might end up being a weekly show for a week or two. Let's get right into it. And then we'll mix in some announcements throughout the show here, but one thing that's been gnawing at me, and I require a basketball expert to bring me up to speed here. We've mentioned them a little bit. The Miami of Ohio Redhawks. Irby, I saw, couple big time X accounts, ESPN guys, whoever they are, major broadcast type dudes, talking about they have to win the tournament to win their conference tournament still to make the NCAA tournament. To me, that just seemed a little outrageous. Bring me up to speed here. Is that a real thing, or is that just blowing smoke?
No, it's a real thing. I mean, the conjecture is a real thing. How about we put it there? And it's an interesting conversation for the fact that a team could be 33-1, which plays, yes, they play in a mid-major conference, but there's a way that Miami of Ohio loses in their championship game against an Akron, possibly a Kent State, possibly Buffalo makes a run with a former Wisconsin player leading the way there in their conference tournament. They finished 33-1. They finished the regular season undefeated, which looks like they will. They're currently 29-0, 15-0, 13-0, 16-0 in conference. They could go all the way to the championship game, Dilly, and get out. And here's how they would get out. It would be like a 9 or a 10 seed from the Big Ten, maybe, or like a 9th ranked team, or that type of deal in the Big Ten. Maybe the ACC, like some of those middling teams in the ACC. We're going to end up bumping a 9th place team in a big conference for a team who literally ran through the regular season 33-0. And then they lose 33-1. It's a real thing because their net isn't good enough. They don't have very many quad 1 wins. There really isn't anybody in that conference. I mean, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan have won basically. They've basically lost 20 games on the season. That goes all the way up to like Central Michigan, Ball State, and NIU in their conference. Their conference is terrible. That's the bottom line. They're terrible. The best team in there is obviously Akron, 15-1, but overall they're 24-5. And the reason they're 24-5, Dilly, is because they play nobody in conference. It's the non-conference games that Miami of Ohio didn't play and or didn't win because they're not beating Wisconsin. They're not beating Illinois. They're not beating any of those teams that would maybe play them regionally. They're just not. And the prognosticators say that they could get out. I'm sitting here on Audible Angle, and I will tell you, if they lose in the conference tournament final, basically what people are saying is that they need to be an automatic bid, that they won't get an at-large. So that at-large goes to like a NC State last year.
Yeah, I feel like I disagree with that, and I don't know if it's, I feel like it would take another upset in even one of the bigger conferences or two in order to knock them out. Where a team that went to got in, it's hard to imagine in the Big 10 or Big 12 or even the SEC, some 8th, 9th place team jumps up and secures a spot. 10th, 11th place team goes on a wild run and gets in there to take up, force a better team into an at-large bid that, if it's Michigan or Purdue or Wisconsin or, if they win the Big Ten, no big deal. If it's Minnesota finds a dude or they only play 22-minute games, Minnesota runs through the tournament. Something crazy like that would have to happen once or twice. And the reason why I say that, and I'm not going to have specifics, folks. Been alive too long. $1 bills in my first NCAA bracket in 7th grade. Shout out to Wayne Holla. Thank you. That might also be the last time I won any money in an NCAA bracketology contest. But I feel like we've been down this road a little bit before. Just a team that's 30-1, 33-1 from a lesser conference. They're few and far between where they're almost guaranteed a spot, even if they don't win their conference tournament. But this one feels like one of those teams that they've done all they can do. Now, you did bring up a good point, and scheduling, what year you finalize your schedule and stuff, they didn't do themselves any favors. If they would have went and played Indiana and had a 4-point loss and, played, played Georgia and lost by 6 or won by 1, like that would have been better than beating up on Austin P and some other jabronis in non-conference games. So they can take some blame themselves, but I don't think it should happen.
Well, let me give you a real scenario that could happen. So this week, BYU fell out of the top 25. They went from 19 to not even in the top 25. All right, so BYU is currently 9th in their conference. Arguably, all year long, they've been in the top 25. They've been very high. They've been inside the top 10. They've kind of been sniffing in that middling area in the top 25, Dilly. So what happens is BYU doesn't have to win their conference. They're not going to win their conference, but let's say they go into the semifinals in their conference, then they're the ninth. Conference tournament. They're the 9th ranked team right now. They're the 9th place team in the Big 12. They should be in the tournament. But should they be in the tournament instead of Miami of Ohio, who goes 33-0, loses in their championship? Now they're 33-1 when BYU is 20-9. They'll be 24-9 at that point. I don't think you keep Miami of Ohio, but boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, BYU could upset some people. I don't know if BYU can. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know if BYU is going to upset anybody. I think Miami of Ohio can. I don't know. It just is one of those things because BYU is probably going to be I don't know, maybe they get it as a 10 seed then. And Miami of Ohio is probably a play-in game or something crazy. I don't know, like a 7-seed play-in game.
Yeah, and if you're looking at the Big Ten, you'd be looking at, Ohio State. They had a big win. We'll get to the Big Ten. Maybe we'll get into the Big Ten right now. Might as well. We had everything laid out, how it was supposed to work out. A bunch of 5-loss teams in that securely behind Michigan and Nebraska. We they at least held serve and won, and we kind of thought they'd win out. Then we thought Illinois, Purdue, Wisconsin, they'd all, and maybe Michigan State too, would all be 5-loss teams at the end of the road here. And Purdue went and took a dump. Wisconsin took a dump. What happened in the Big Ten this past week?
Yeah, I mean, as we stated, the Big Ten's they kind of eat each other up and they hurt each other on the national rankings because they play such a tight and good conference. There's really, realistically, everything Ohio State and above are probably decent contenders for the NCAA tournament. And you're right, Ohio State's probably firmly on the bubble, but Iowa's decent. UCLA is playing very well. Wisconsin, they play well one game and horseshit the next, so who the hell knows what happens with them. Purdue, same. They kind of stink, but then they're good, and then they stink, and then they stink, and then they're good. It's all because of their stupid point guard. Illinois, they're good, but then they're not, and then they're talking about how they got their pants beat off. Then Michigan State, Nebraska, who hasn't been challenged since basically November. They're going to play nobody good the rest of the way and haven't since, I don't know, Christmas time. And then you have Michigan, who their one loss is to lowly old Wisconsin. So they beat up on each other. Dilly, there's not much going to happen here. I think the top 4 are basically locked in. Illinois could trip possibly, but they don't have a tough schedule. We can go down that. And I think we should in those top 5 teams. There's a good game. There's a Michigan versus Michigan State rivalry game. That'll be the most interesting thing the rest of the way.
Before we take a look at the Big Ten tournament coming up after next week or after this week, we obviously guaranteed obvious outclassed victory for the Badgers to start off their West Coast double against Oregon. And I mean, was it just a stink fest? Just flush it down the toilet. Boys were tired. We talked about our Midwest guys playing 10 p.m. their time. Did they get tired?
I don't know, dude. I'll tell you who wasn't tired. They're shooters. I'm pretty sure Greg Gard listens to the audible angle and he's like, hey, the guys on audible angle say if we make more threes, we're going to be better. So let's shoot more threes. Holy shit, Dilly. Did you see how many threes they shot? 45! 45 threes! Who shoots? That's 68% of their shots. Almost 70% of their shots were behind the arc. Wrong answer. They made 14, but when you shoot 45, that's not going to win you very many games. And Oregon came out of nowhere. They're finally healthy, Dilly. Oregon could be that team that upsets a few teams down the road. They looked good. They looked like the Oregon team last year that made kind of a mini run in the Big Ten tournament, kind of beat some teams that were dangerous a little bit in that NCAA tournament. They've got the guy that's been balding since, everybody's got that kid they go to school with that's balding since the 8th grade, and he's going to be bald. That guy, their big
Brian
guy.
Cardinal?
Yes. So they're a decent team, but man, Wisconsin, when you're not making them, stop shooting them. Stop. But they bounce back.
I mean, I was kind of joking about them being tired. And this will be, I don't know if this is a shout out or a sideswipe at my good friend Willis Carlson, longtime college roommate, buddy, teammate in college. I always got upset at guys like Willis when we played men's rec league basketball or pickup basketball because I'm a oversized, width-wise, undersized, height-wise, guy that bangs around on the block, and especially in men's league basketball. I don't have a three-point shot to speak of, so I play the full court, block to block, offense, defense, block to block, and I'm banging bodies. And Willis, he's similar width. More of a 5'10" guy. He can actually bang around against smaller guys, but he could shoot the three ball. So he's jogging from the wing to the wing. And, of course, in men's rec league basketball, you don't really challenge the three-point shot because you say, go ahead and try it, bitch, and if he makes it, who gives a shit? You just run down and shoot on the other end. And and a couple other guys that played like that, they never subbed out, never got tired. And they'd be like, I'm good. And I was like, yeah, you're playing on a 32-foot court. You just jog from one wing to the other. I got to fly down. Also, because if I don't, then the lane's wide open for a layup. The whole point of that story is I was joking, and I think maybe you were exaggerating when you said the boys would be tired playing a late game on the West Coast. But when you shoot 45 threes, that actually tells me maybe you were tired because it saps a lot more energy to try to drive to the rack and work hard for easy buckets. That was just, I didn't stand out here. Nobody's going to guard me 3 feet behind the line. Make them. We look good. Miss them. At least I'm not tired.
Yeah, they were chucking it, man. It was hard to watch. In the second half, I think the Badgers were up at halftime, but then they just kept chucking, and Oregon, to your credit, Dilly wasn't in the lane. Oregon just kept dunking. That's all they did. They just kept dunking, and our threes clanked. They ran down, dunk. One thing that Oregon is not short on, Dilly, you love this, is big dudes.
Big dudes, yeah. Got to have a lot of big dudes. Quick question for you, because you mentioned them, and it's a team we haven't talked much about. You mentioned UCLA. University of California, Los Angeles, for those who didn't know. In standing-wise, they moved up. They took a loss to the Minnesota Golden Gophers on Saturday. Is UCLA, they're an NCAA team right now.
Bubble. I think if they get in on the bubble, Dilly. They are probably. I don't think it's both UCLA and Ohio State. I don't see both of them getting in, Ukla's got a tough road. They have to beat Nebraska. It is at home. Nebraska's out east or out west. I'm sorry. So, and then they've got USC. Ukla does. They do have a good win. They just beat 2 Saturdays ago in overtime. They beat Illinois, which was a good win for them. They've got some okay wins. They started beating teams that they have. UCLA will score points. Bottom line. So, and Minnesota, for all intents and purposes, shut them down by dropping down to 73. But it was, I don't know. I mean, that USC UCLA game, they just played last Tuesday and they're playing again Saturday. So literally, they're playing 2 weeks apart, time wise, with 2 games in between.
You slid Ohio State in there as a bubble team. We got UCLA on the bubble. What do you say about Iowa then? Is Iowa on the bubble? I mean, and it's the kind of bubble that seems to be like we're saying, let's throw. I mean, I'm not even going to throw Indiana in there. I'm just going to say UCLA, Iowa, Ohio State. Is that the sort of bubble where it's pretty clearly 2 out of 3 get in? They're not like it's not going to be 0 of the 3.
Well, it could be one of the 3 though, and here's why. So I think how it's going to shake out, Dilly, is that Ohio State gets in, maybe UCLA, but Iowa's probably going to be on the outside looking in, and here's why. They have Michigan remaining, and they have Nebraska remaining. That's loss. So that if you look at the standings, and you've got to assume that UCLA and Ohio State, Ohio State is actually, Iowa finishes below all of them. Ohio State coming home has lowly Penn State and Indiana. So Ohio State's got a little bit of an easier road than Iowa. Now, on the flip side, let's say Iowa goes and wins both of those games, which is entirely possible. I then think Iowa is in, no questions asked. So that's why you have to watch the rest of these games. Now, let's say they win 1 out of 2 in that last one, then make a run in the Big Ten. A lot of things can change in that Big Ten tournament because they're going to have to go through one of those top 4, top 5 teams, and that could also add to their resume. The resume is solid for Iowa, but when you lose these 2 last games late in the season, that does hurt unless you play really well in the conference tournament. So there's a lot to be said there in the bottom side.
Yeah, I was going to say on the bottom side, well, I like the sound of that. On the bottoms here, bottom side, backside, the butts of the Big Ten for the same teams that we talked about: UCLA, Iowa, Ohio State. Maybe throw Indiana in there. They seem to have a little bit longer road. You mentioned USC, even their overall record's a little better. Do these teams have? Regardless of, assume it shakes out how we think it's going to, their last couple games here, do they gain anything in their first round of the Big Ten tournament matchups, first round or 2, beating up on the butts of the Big Ten? They take out Maryland, Rutgers, Oregon, Penn State. They rack up another win or 2, but it's not against Nebraska, Michigan State, Illinois. Can they beat each other up enough? Feast on the minnows, and then get one more win, and then say, "Hey, we padded our record up to 24 wins or so."
Right now, I don't know if it matters if you're saying it between those 4 teams: UCLA, Iowa, Ohio State, and Indiana. The only reason I say that is because Iowa will have the better of the 2 records overall. They'll be 20-11, assuming they lose their last 2. The other ones are not going to get to 20 wins, Dilly, so Iowa's always going to have that advantage. In the conference play, I think it's less important because I think the pollsters, the NCAA bracket makers, I think they're looking at overall, and then they're looking at quad 1 wins. Iowa has the resume already. They've got some upsets in their season that they've been on the positive side of. I just think Iowa's got the 2 toughest games left in the conference. That's no question, right? When you have to play Michigan and Nebraska, it's going to be tough because you're just that people just, it's natural, right? You're only going to remember those 2 games, and then if they have an early out in the Big Ten, Now you're all of a sudden you're on the outside looking in. But Dilly, back to our first point. Iowa is another team that, let's say they win 4 games in the Big Ten, and Miami of Ohio loses in their conference tournament. Iowa's going instead of Miami of Ohio. That bottom line, they've got it better. That's it. That's the scenario. It's BYU or Iowa who take the place of Miami of Ohio if they lose. Just win Miami of Ohio even without your coach, and just keep the DJ stuff away from your coach during the games.
It is an interesting point for those middling teams, kind of bubble teams in their conference tournament. They don't have much to gain from beating a bottom feeder, but they have everything to lose. They can't necessarily withstand an early exit, anything ugly, and to get off the bubble, they probably need to get to the semifinal game at least, because that means they knocked off a sure tournament team, or what we think is a sure tournament team. How do you see the top seeds? I mean, obviously Michigan in the Big Ten tournament will be a 1 seed. Does Nebraska hold on? Is there any changes coming down the pipe? Michigan, Nebraska, Michigan State, and Illinois, the top 4 in the tournament?
That's a really good question. I think the only thing that could happen is you have to look at Illinois. They're probably the team that could lose, but they've got Maryland and Oregon. There's a scenario, because they're at 13-5, that if they lose and Wisconsin beats Purdue, that's going to be the big game in the end of the season here. We talked about this 5 weeks ago, Dilly. Don't turn the TV off. Purdue versus Wisconsin will mean something. And there's a scenario where if Illinois loses 1 and gets to 6 losses, Wisconsin takes care of business against Maryland and somehow beats Purdue. That game is at Wisconsin. Very likely Wisconsin wins that game. Wisconsin then is 14-6. Illinois is 14-6. Goes to tiebreakers. There's a scenario there where Wisconsin robs it from Illinois, and poo-poo on you, Purdue. You do not get in either.
Yeah, Purdue is tough to figure out. It's we've talked about them sliding, a couple wins and then they lose a couple in a row again. Don't know if they're good or just if they're just a top middling team instead of clearly behind Michigan in that second tier kind of team. Let's move on to our other favorite conference. I'm going to try to zip you through a bunch of other conferences too, just to kind of give a little bit of a Miami of Ohio perspective on those two. But let's go to the Big 12 first. We kind of thought this was getting sorted out with Arizona. They still have a 2-game lead. They're going to finish on top of that conference. Are we setting that in stone yet?
Are you there, Dilly?
And I'm going to keep talking because I think I might have lost Irby here for a second. We'll edit that. We interrupt this programming for some technical difficulties. Herbs, did you say you were froze too? Did your internet go down or just ours? Because if yours and mine went down, I'm going to start worrying about a global catastrophe or a sunspot or something like that.
I think my internet's fine.
All right, we're back at it. I was asking if Arizona had this thing wrapped up, and we'll use the, edit button. Good time to, another quick interruption, good time to let the fans know we have been heavily interviewing a big crop of candidates, of new producers, and we're going to have some final word on that in the next couple of weeks. And as it looks right now, folks, we're going to have a producer. Now, project number 1, maybe you'll end up listening to this episode. Step number 1, they're going to have to tell us in the final interview. Question 1 is, what is a producer and what do they actually do? Because I don't know. Do you know?
I think they add some cool stuff, and I think what that will create is some editing, which could really be used when your internet goes down after 23 minutes of an episode, and then you're gone and I'm gone, and then we both meet again, and At least this one will probably be done in 22 minutes, which will actually be 45 minutes. But I think they do.
Yeah, so basically, a guy comes in, makes the show way better, and we do a lot less work. We just show up, and he throws up topics or says the topics in our ears. We just go blah blah blah, yeah, and then he says, "Moving on to the injury report." Wildcats, number one, is the Big 12 settled?
Essentially. I mean, I think the Big 12, the conference champs, are going to be Arizona. Don't know who's going to win their conference tournament because any of those top 4 to 5 teams. I'm still on Houston, Dilly. I think Texas Tech has proved that they can compete. Iowa State's the real deal, and Kansas. Arguably the most dangerous team out of those top 5, Kansas, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Houston, and Arizona. I would tell you that Iowa State has the biggest upside. The most consistent team is Arizona, right? That's no question. Houston has hit some road bumps. Again, I'll say it again. I'd rather them hit some road bumps now than in 2 weeks. This is when they need to. They're still 24-5. This is a top-loaded division. This is not more than a 5 NCAA bid team. People would argue with me that UCF deserves it. Screw that. They're not. They're tailing off. TCU's not good enough. BYU's a bubble team. I don't know, man. They could make a run. Realistically, I could see BYU getting it together, dealing winning conference tournament, but they're not going to win. They're not threatening. Obviously, they're 500 in the conference now. It's not good for them.
Do we take much away from that Arizona-Kansas game? Kansas kind of went down a little hard. Is it just one of those got a little away from them and they kind of folded up a little bit?
Hey, Kansas is an Audible Angle sponsored team. We've sent a lot of dollars that through there, so we have sponsored them. But I believe at our last owners meeting down in Kansas, that I don't know if you smelt what I smelt, but I think that the locker room's getting a little funny. Well, that's what happens when you have the best team or best player in the country. There's some dissent in the locker room. I don't know if Bill Self is lost. I won't go so far as to say that he's lost the locker room, but there's some problems there. There's some guys that aren't talking to the media. There's just some funny business. I didn't like the body language when we were having dinner, having those steaks down in Kansas. Didn't like that funny business. Didn't like the cold shoulder that some guys were giving us. We're big boosters. And nobody wanted to talk to the Audible Angle crew. All right, whatever.
Yeah, they went, I'll tell you what, here's what I'm reading, and I did actually watch part of this game. I think I tuned in the middle of Arizona's 19-0 run and was like, what the hell's going on, and just turned the channel. Here's the exact quote, and this will hit close to home for you. Arizona took advantage of Kansas's smaller lineup. Not enough big dudes in there. How can a coach, Bill Self, is he on the hot seat? He allows a 19-0 run without putting in some big dudes.
Bottom line, Dilly, they are guard dominated. You can get away with that in today's NCAA men's basketball game. You know why? Shoot 45 threes, but make 25 of them. That's how you're going to get away with that, and that's why Arizona doesn't compete. They take too many twos. That's a thing. They score only twos. That's why they're going to get beat in the NCAA tournament. They're going to run into Miami of Ohio, who's slinging it and making them. That's what happens in the NCAA tournament. Don't make so many twos. In Arizona, in Kansas, you probably should have got some more big dudes.
We've broken down. You're saying 5 teams out of this conference, with the 6 being BYU. We're completely ignoring UCF and TCU. We think only one team with a 3-letter acronym name can be entered into a tournament from one conference anyway, and that team is going to be BYU. They're better. You brought us back around to Miami of Ohio. I'm going to do a little hot fire with you, Irby. The America East Conference, UMBC, Vermont. Do we care about either of those 2 teams?
American East? I'm going to tell you that I think UMBC is UMBC is one of those 16 seed that's upset a 1 seed. There's some lineage there. I like UMBC to win that conference tournament. Vermont, very good soccer team, won the national title 2 years ago. not a real good basketball team.
Yeah, and it's hard on these teams. I mean, as I was even looking at this, it's almost like you have to. They're the retrievers. Now that I see that here, it's almost like you have to just skip over them if they're not in a spot where they're like Miami of Ohio 33-0, because you don't even really know the difference because they're not getting in at large. There's no discussion there. It's just does the first place team or the second place team make it. Our old friends, Wichita State, they're in the mix with South Florida. A couple in the American Conference. Doesn't matter there. Does South Florida have anything going for them?
Yeah, they are the Bulls, right? That's the Bulls. It seems
Yep.
like they're the mid-major football Thursday national week every football game, and they think they play every Thursday or every Friday night during the football season. I like the Shockers because they're called the Shockers. They were really good 5 years ago, but I think South Florida probably wins that conference.
All right, yeah, and South Florida, good friend of the show, was a USF Bull on a golf team, fellow Division I athlete. Maybe we'll have him on sometime, but he'd be fun, but I don't know. You have to catch him at the right beer level. Atlantic Sun, Austin P, that's a name people remember. Central Arkansas, not a name people remember. Are these conferences, do they even get a tournament bid?
Yeah, they will get an at large. These guys do get an at large. Don't be surprised. I would like Central Arkansas. A fella I used to work with. We had a place, we had a building, and he used to work out of Arkansas. He would tell me that watch for Central Arkansas. They've got some athletes, and he was an old basketball athlete. He's no longer with us. He's passed away. But a good guy, knew basketball, an old official. He would say, watch Central Arkansas. They're good down there. They're now D1. Let's see him in the NCAA. I think there is there, but there's some lineage with Austin P, so you got to deal with that.
Cautionary tale, folks. That's the same conference as the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles. Anybody remember those guys? They were hot and heavy. Everybody loved them.
Gemma Slamma. Yes, sir.
Everybody was excited for them. Now they're 8-10 in conference, and you might never hear of them again for another 10 years. You gotta. Well, that might have been right before NIL and transfer stuff really came to a head. I mean, that's a couple, 4 or 5 years ago already that they made their run. But man, you imagine now that their NIL budget would multiply, go up 2,000%, and they might be able to stick around. But these teams got to strike gold. What about our friends at VCU? And they're trying to chase down St. Louis, Dayton in that conference, St. Joseph, George Mason. This is the Atlantic 10. None of these teams are on an impressive run, but these are multiple teams that have, made a little sniff of it in the NCAA tournament before. Is this a tough enough conference to get 2 in?
I think I don't think it is, Dilly. St. Louis is kind of the cream of the crop here. Another question, though, does St. Louis have enough to get an at-large bid? They probably do if they lose their conference tournament. So there's a scenario here with one of those top 5 teams, George Mason, Dayton, St. Joseph's, or VCU. If they win the conference tournament, I think St. Louis steals one of those at-large bids, which affects Miami of Ohio. Everything goes back to that. So if you're Miami of Ohio, you're a St. Louis fan, you're a Billiken. And the reason being they're back in the top 25. They took a cup of coffee off to kind of, see the rankings, understand the rankings. Now they're back. So you've got to cheer for them if you want Miami of Ohio in.
Where's Shaka Smart hanging out these days? Talking about grabbing the bull by the horns and making a name for yourself?
He's over at Marquette, and they stink.
That's what I thought. Stunk it up. Marquette used to be a good, reliable NCAA tournament team. Here's another minor conference, totally worthless. Do you think it's possible to get 2 teams in? The Big East, they got, let's see, UConn on top. St. John's, someone seemed to suggest Villanova mattered. Any chance any team from this conference does anything?
Well, if you listen to everybody that throws votes in the top 25, UConn's winning the national title again. They gained 2 spots by beating basically nobody. Okay, they beat St. John's. So St. John's is a hot team. St. John's makes the tournament. Yes. Villanova has an argument to make the tournament. They're probably one of those top, those teams that are outside of the top 25 that get in at large because they're not going to win the tournament because UConn's the third best team in the country. Joke. So it's just one of those deals where UConn plays nobody, gets a lot of respect for no reason because their coach is a blowhard. I guess just scream and yell and be demonstrative, and you get your team in the top three. They're not good. St. John's is better, but we'll see how it shakes out.
And I'm trying to see, Villanova, at least they tried with their schedule. They didn't exactly have a barn burner with Michigan. They got their ass whooped. They played BYU. Played Sacred Heart. Big win, 94-60, Sacred Heart. And the reason why I'm scanning through these, obviously, because they play UConn and St. John's, it's a tougher schedule than Miami of Ohio, but, Villanova's in that range where, if it gets ugly, are we talking about Villanova or Miami of Ohio? I think that nod goes to Villanova. Moving on to the Big Sky. Portland State, Montana State, Eastern Washington. Any reason to spend more than 1 minute talking about this conference?
You're on the Big Sky?
Big Sky.
Yeah. 1.5.
It rhymes with big guy.
Yep.
Big guys.
Portland State, who cares? That's what it is. It's a Portland State, and who cares?
Big South. High Point, 27-4 overall. They got a couple game lead over Winthrop. None of these teams. That's Charleston Southern, not. Yeah, these are teams we haven't heard of. High Point, you hear a little bit about. Win your tournament, you're in. That's the only thing there, right?
Yeah, they've got to win it. I think they will win it. Nice record, 27-4 overall. They've won 11 games in a row. That probably gives you an idea how bad their conference is. High Point's in with a win.
Then we got the Big West, Hawaii, and a bunch of California, fake California teams. UC Irvine, I guess, they're tied at the top of the conference. That's one team in. No fun.
Yeah. One bitter, but I wouldn't mind seeing Hawaii in the tournament. Would you? I wouldn't mind it. Kind of neat.
I wouldn't mind that, and I wouldn't mind it sometime if they just went full-fledged and hosted some NCAA tournament basketball in Hawaii. Just give us and host some in Bermuda. Just have the game start at 8 a.m. and go until tip-off at midnight. Give us the whole day. Give us what we want. Make it. Go ahead. If you're going to make it, eventually 96 teams or some ridiculous thing like that, make sure to utilize things like Bermuda a couple hours ahead and Hawaii a couple hours behind. I mean, there's more conferences than I thought. I'm going to skip a couple here. Our old friends in the Conference USA. Is that a two-team conference? Liberty, Kennesaw State, good at football. I mean, Sam Houston, nothing.
I'm going to say one bid. Sam Houston has a good overall record. I would have to look at the net, but I don't think their net is good enough to get them in. I don't think they have any club limits.
Now, we're going to spend 2.5 minutes on this conference. UWGB Fighting Phoenix in the Horizon League. They're in third place in the conference. Overall, they're not going to get in at large. Robert Morris isn't going to get in at large. Wright State isn't going to get in at large. But, Green Bay, Detroit, Oakland, these are teams that have a bunch of wins. They're have winning records in their conference. Could this be a little bit of a sleeper conference tournament where do you see 2 or 3 teams in here that can actually win the conference tournament?
It's pretty neat to see a conference that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that are over 500. The seventh team, that tells you that they played. And what's weird is Horizon League played a tough non-conference. We talked about it early in the year, back in November. Yeah. We talked about them playing a bunch of Big Ten teams. It wasn't like they were slouches. They didn't just play Kennesaw State. They didn't play these jokes. So, big story for Green Bay. I don't know if we've won all the fans back from the 90s and the early 2000s that Dick Bennett had and Mike Heidemann in the heyday. But, boy, I'll tell you, they're turning them around. They made some waves. Coaches getting some attention by throwing chairs. they've got a good team this year. They've got a chance. I think anybody in that top 5 could win this conference tournament. That's to answer your question, Dilly.
And that's what we're looking for. And those tournaments usually finish up a little bit earlier than the big conferences. So early next week, tune into the Horizon League games. I'm sure they're on TV. When they pay us, we'll advertise for them, but we don't have a deal with ESPN. We mentioned many episodes ago, I went down to Disney and tried to work on it. I went and golfed and didn't see anybody that worked in the broadcast arm. Thought they'd be there. I did meet some characters. Ivy League, we've talked actually a tiny bit about Yale. I believe Yale got mentioned once. Like they're Yale, right?
Yeah, this is a team that's a sleeper team in the NCAA tournament. Let's assume they win their conference tournament because the Ivy League does now have a conference tournament. They didn't for many, many years. Actually, I think this is only the second or third year that they do. But let's assume that Yale gets that win. It's an old team. I think this is one of those teams in the country that doesn't affect NIL so much, this whole entire conference, because these kids are going to school for something other than what they're going to get paid for basketball. They're going to make that NIL money when they graduate. So that's one of those things. I do like Yale here.
We are back. I just let everybody keep talking. There's an internet problem again. I've connected to a different internet, so hopefully we'll stay connected here. We left off talking about our friends in the Yale department. Moving on to the MAAC, M-A-A-C. Merrimack, only notable because that's the street we grew up on. Can't hear me. Even better. Even better.
I can see you. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Let me check the mic here. Can you hear me now? There we go.
No, I can't. No, I got you.
Moved on to Merrimack Way. Is this in the MAAC? Not the MAC, the MOC. Nothing there. Win the tournament and you're in.
Yep, correct. Not a 2 seed.
MEAC. We're going to skip around. We already talked about Miami Akron. We are just going to try to skip around here for a second. If we lose the internet one more time, we'll just do a little bait and switch. We got to move on quick to the Big 12. The SEC, our other favorite conference. We'll get back to these smaller conferences. I know people want to hear about the Patriot League. SEC, Irby, anything changing there? We got Alabama, which we talked about a lot of the year, has moved their way up in the conference standings. Could they get, win the conference tournament? Of course they could, but do you see that? Do you see anything from Alabama? I think you've said before Florida is a legit contender.
Yeah, I mean they're the defending national titles champions. But here's the deal, Dilly. I talked about it. Just be patient with Alabama. Just be patient with Alabama. I think they are now healthy, fully healthy, ready to go. They're on an 8-game winning streak, arguably one of the hottest teams in the NCAA, as well as Florida. They have a 9-game win streak, but these are the two teams that you should watch. Arkansas is the best young point guard in the league. That young man is the real deal. I think this is probably a 3-4. Tennessee is trying to get themselves in that 5th seed. So here's another one where Tennessee, Vanderbilt, for whatever reason, is still in the top flipping 25. They're the 7th ranked team in their league, but there might be A&M might get in. So should maybe Georgia. So these are the other leagues that are maybe a 9-10 seed team league to get into the NCAA. I don't like any of them outside of Arkansas, Alabama, or Florida, and I really like Alabama.
Yeah, Vanderbilt's lost 3 out of 4. They continue. We didn't even know why they were ranked before they had those losses. They continue to be ranked. We did talk about a possible scenario in which ESPN weighs heavy in their minds of the NCAA tournament with their relationship with the SEC and the SEC network. Good for them, because we don't believe in a lot of these teams making a deep push outside of Florida. And, we obviously like Alabama a little bit in Arkansas. After that, you might as well just pick any old Big 10, Big 12 middling team out of a hat to beat Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. Herbs, we're kind of transitioned to hustle gear. a little bit because of this internet situation. We're going to abruptly change gears. We, as Packer fans, many Packer fans, got what we wanted. Our old friend Rich Biaccia, who is resigning for, no real story there. Well, he's at Clemson now, so apparently he still wants to coach. He just didn't, and maybe he didn't like the new kickoff rules. It was like, I'm too old to learn this shit with these rule changes. Just let me kick off and do a return. Cameron, do you know how to say his name? Accord? Cameron Accord?
Accord, yes.
Accord. Okay. Anything exciting about this guy for you?
The only thing two things. Number one, I do like the trend on the Green Bay Packers coaching staff of youth. Like that's, if you were to say the offseason, what did we do with our team? We got younger, not on the field, off the field. So there's going to be a lot of heavy drinking after games. There's going to be a lot of bar hopping. There's going to be a lot of scandals, sexual scandals happening out of 1265. There's going to be a lot of that because it's a youthful coaching staff led by yours truly, my favorite, Matt LaFleur. This guy's got an upside. He did coach. He's got 10 years of coaching experience. He was the special teams coordinator at the Patriots, who were top ranked at the time. That was back in 20 to 2023. I don't know if they were top ranked because they only got maybe 2 chances those seasons to do anything because Tom Brady and the boys were doing everything, like scoring all the time. I don't know. Who knows? Don't know. Maybe Tom Brady was retired then. Probably was.
He got his beak wet in the league with Bill Belichick. Irby's putting the fifth-year seniors at St. Norbert's and UWGB. Maybe some of these gals aren't sure what the next step is, and it might just be this young assistant coaching staff for the Green Bay Packers. We don't know if this guy's married. If he's not, he's going to be soon because he's going to love Green Bay. He's gonna get on board pretty quick. It's hard to get excited about a special teams coordinator other than, like you said, he's young. He's had a bit of success. It's different. Different can't necessarily be worse. And even when the Packers special teams have been okay in the rankings, different groups and individuals rank special teams over the years, it's not like we're any good. And even the rankings are probably a little misleading because we had a great punter. That's for sure. We have a great punter, and that carries a lot of weight. And then it's like the special teams disasters. It's like they're middling with disasters. They're not like sometimes great, sometimes bad. It's like they're okay or disastrous. So nowhere to go but up, kind of like audible angle. Ruby, one other NFL note. Off the top of the head, David Montgomery goes to the Houston Texans. Does anyone care?
I don't know if anybody cares, but maybe I don't know. I'm not sure the choice. So this is a depth choice, right? This is not a change of pace guy. I mean, the Texans have their running back of the future there, right? Like it's just. Are they looking for depth? Is that a depth move? Is that a leadership thing in the running back room? Got him on the cheap. He still wants to play. He wasn't terrible with the Lions. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
They have Woody Marks and Nick Chubb was on the roster. Nick Chubb could have been a one-year sign it and prove a guy. I don't think David Montgomery moves the needle in any sort of way, other than I believe the one kind of hesitation on Woody Marks was he was injured and or hurt. Maybe is the word. He was hurt a lot. He would miss series a lot. He was in the blue tent a lot. He's kind of a blue tent warrior, and maybe internally they got a little sick of that and wanted to go with a guy. That, more like Nick Chubb, David Montgomery is, without the horrific injury history. Maybe they just want a reliable asset in the backfield, and they might swing again at rookie. Maybe they think they have something with Woody Marks. I was looking for our good friends name who's slipping my mind from the Houston Texans. He was a running back, and like 3 years ago when he was a rookie, he was kind of a stud, broke a ton of tackles. Can't think of his name because he never materialized. He was on the radar as a rookie, and I think kind of maybe in a similar way, they just couldn't rely on him, whether it's pass pro or other things. There's a lot of good running backs in the NFL that in the preseason, Packers have had guys. Oh my God, he led the preseason in rushing, and guys get cut all the time, and I think a lot of it has to do with pass pro and other things. So maybe I don't think it's anything to be excited about for the Houston Texans. And if I was a fan of the Texans, I would think we gave up assets to get David Montgomery, a long in the tooth David Montgomery. Seems a little weird. We got one last NFL thing that I forgot to mention. Our good friend of the program, Jackie Marshall from the Baylor Bears, increasing his stock at the NFL Combine with a lighter, smaller man's 40 time in the 4.8 range. This guy is my kind of guy. Not a first round pick, but I mean, hats off to him if he raises his stock that much. But he's the type of guy. He played in the Senior Bowl as well. He's the kind of guy I have on my radar as a future Packer, later round pick. Athletic, big man, and that's you never can have enough big men, in my eyes.
I want to throw out a conspiracy theory here, Dilly. Maybe the Green Bay Packers might take a chance on an ACL guy who just got released today too, Marshawn Lattimore from the Commanders. Big contract. This is a money-saving deal. I wonder if that's something with the Packers looking for some depth at corner. This guy's a bona fide one when he's healthy. The Commanders cut him, saved $18.5 million. So that's why they got cut. And the ACL.
I mean, I'll tell you what. It's kind of like the Diggs signing, low risk. The Packers, if they're going to get better at cornerback, a lot better at cornerback, they're probably not going to sign a high-end free agent. It's going to be a middling guy, and frankly, they could probably afford to take a look at one or two guys. They'll probably draft one or two guys. But if they can get a guy like Lattimore, normally I would poo-poo this big time. But this guy's already had big contracts. He's had big years, followed by injury and down years. So if you get him in on a friendly deal without guaranteed money, and he practices through training camp and is a guy, sometimes you get these guys that are a little older and they have, lost their opportunity at guaranteed money. And then they come in and they piece together a great season or two in order to get another big contract. So I wouldn't rule that. My first instinct when I saw that was, please, nobody bring up this guy. But when you think about it in terms of, if he's at a point with injury and inconsistent performance, maybe you get him on the cheap and you give him a look to see if he's healthy enough to play and wants to play. We'll take a gander.
I think you'd take him for a walk. I do. I think you'd take him for a walk.
Anything else to wrap up on, Irby? Well, I forget. We were going to do a show on Saturday morning. You're out on the South property. What the hell were you doing out there? Getting duck fever?
Yeah, we brought out a platform, a very heavy platform that we actually put so that we drove into the ground, which you're only going to get out there. It's probably a 12 by 4 foot metal platform that's going to have a solid base for some of the older guys, make it a little bit easier, as Brian was talking about, so that other guys can come out there that may not be as healthy as you and I, any athletic specimens as you and I, that might be able to hunt. So we had the only way we were going to get out there is on the ice. This Saturday was probably the last time. The ice will be out probably next week. And then we circled around and did our job with the habitat, as Brian chronicled as well. Cleaned out some wood duck boxes and got it ready for the new wood duck crop that will be hatching in the spring.
Irby, you ran into some guys over the last week or so, listeners of the program, friends of the show, not exactly family, it's not our mom and dad we're talking about here. These are guys that you're associated with, maybe don't talk to every day. They're listening. If you're out there and you're one of these guys, make sure you're subscribing. Follow us on X too. Get a little chatter going there. As much as we like the ladies out there with cryptocurrency problems that want our help, we like some other followers as well. Helps keep us on our toes and know what you guys want to hear. We do have a lot coming up. It's NFL Draft Combine wasn't a big deal for us, but before you know it, we're going to be NFL free agency, NFL draft. We got World Cup coming. We got NCAA tournament, and ladies and gentlemen, we have our own personal golf games to break down, and that might be 2-3 rounds a week. That could be 6 hours of content per week. Just that.
Yeah, don't forget, we've got 2 interviews teed up already. The Augsburg men's soccer head coach is coming on. We've got him locked in. We've got the UW Platteville men's soccer coach, Jesse Tinney. He's locked in. So we're going to have those on back-to-back episodes. That'll be fun in probably a week or two. We got to get those locked in because spring seasons are coming up. Spring practice, D3 is in full swing. They're practicing outside in Platteville.
Yeah, that's one of those things you forget about because I guess you get mini camps in the NFL and there's spring ball and college football, but yeah, all the fall sports, soccer included, they get back out there. And unlike football, soccer, these D3 schools, they play some competitive matches, don't they, in the spring?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting kind of a rule. Division I soccer teams who can carry 28 guys get a spring season of 5 games. The Division III programs, and this will be interesting to get both of these coaches' perspective here, they get 1 official game. When they carry rosters of 40 to 42 guys, trying to get looks at guys and see how they've improved over the winter, see how they did, the fall season, a lot of freshmen that you want to get time here. I don't know, NCAA. Let's wake up and make it even. There's no reason that D3 can't have the same amount of games in the spring as D1. I get it. No, they don't have the funds, but they're just going to play the teams around them. Platteville's going to Edgewood and playing. They'll play each other. Be a good little, good warm-ups, something to do. Give the guys more games.
Yeah, give them a couple more games, NCAA. We've outlined how the NCAA is somewhat sketchy and possibly worthless, and we'll ask coaches about that. Probably won't ask them to totally trash the NCAA, but they'll make their case for a little different structuring of their spring season. Ruby, I think that's all we got today, other than a whole big bunch of headache with the editing and put a note in the comments if you would have rather heard like 8 minutes of silence or 3 minutes of silence as we get disconnected and try to reconnect.
Hey, can't wait for the Masters. Don't forget about the Masters. We'll have some previews coming up too.
I was joking about our own personal golf games. I probably won't get into that too much unless it's EMGA, which is another thing we have coming down the pipe. A lot of work, but that's why we do it at night. Everybody, if our employers are watching this, it's 9:30 at night. We are not affecting our day jobs yet.
Dilly, FYI, picked up a brand new 56-degree Vokey wedge. Got that. We're adding the 46-degree wedge, the utility wedge, if you will, to go 2 gap wedges going back in the bag, and now I'll be carrying a full 14 club bag.
I was just going to tell you, I've been carrying 13 for years now. I need something that 5 wood. I need to fit it in between the hybrid and the 3 wood, and then I have a 60-degree wedge that I basically don't use. So that's essentially 12 clubs I'm carrying, and maybe use a little of that advertiser dollars that come pouring in. It just shows up in the account. I don't even know how it works. We just get these big deposits and maybe translate that into some more content with some new golf clubs.
Hey now.
See you soon.
Later.